Hey there, jewelry friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers podcast. My name is Desiree, and I am your jewelry reselling bestie. Today, we're going to talk about something that comes up a lot whenever I am talking with other resellers about selling jewelry, and I'm sure we can all relate. Imagine listing a beautiful, gorgeous vintage necklace expecting it to sell fast, and then weeks go by, maybe even months go by, in some cases years go by, and nothing happens. Does that sound familiar? Well, you're not alone, jewelry friends, because today we're going to talk about why isn't my jewelry selling. This is something that I think we all deal with from time to time. And so in today's episode, I'm going to cover 7 of the what I call fixable mistakes that could be hindering your jewelry sales. All right, these are things that maybe you've heard before, maybe you haven't heard before, but I do want to share them with you so you can maybe think about what you could do differently, or maybe what you could start doing that you're not already doing to help you generate more sales as it relates to your jewelry reselling business. But before we get into that, I like to always remind you to opt into our newsletter, because when you do that, I will send you a list of the 20 best selling vintage jewelry brands that I think all resellers should know. It's an instant download, and it's a document that I created from my own experience as well as my own research. So I will let you have access to that for free. All you got to do is head on over to the website, which is jewelryresellerspodcast.com. I also have some other resources over there for you that I think are going to be very helpful no matter where you are in your jewelry reselling journey. So make sure you take a look at the resources page if you're interested. All right, let's go ahead and get into today's topic because we do have a lot of things to cover. Now, like I said at the top of the show, I think resellers struggle with kind of having an objective look at their jewelry business. And I'm going to speak from my own experience because I know this has happened to me where I question why aren't certain jewelry pieces selling. And then I have blind spots in my own business, right? I think we all do because we're emotionally invested and attached sometimes to our jewelry inventory, or maybe we just don't know a whole lot about reselling, about jewelry, about business, and so we may not necessarily see things that someone with a little bit more experience could instantly recognize. All right, so like I said, we're going to talk about the 7 fixable mistakes that it could be costing you jewelry sales. And the good news is, like, a lot of these things I think are pretty manageable. It's not like you're going to have to do an entire overhaul of your business, although sometimes that could be the answer too. But in this case, I want to focus on the things that are uh, fixable, actionable, and things that you can do probably right after you're done listening to this episode or watching this episode if you're joining me on YouTube. So let's go ahead and get started. So the number one reason why your jewelry may not be selling, it could be bad photos. Yes, I know we've talked about this many times on the podcast, and I think this is something that just gets better with time. I've even done a blog post that kind of breaks down how to photograph jewelry for reselling. And I will link that in the show notes in case you're interested in taking a look at that. But it's really important to have clear, well lit images that are in focus of the jewelry that you want to sell. Now, I know this sounds pretty basic, but you would be surprised how many jewelry resellers don't take the time to make sure that they have really good, strong photos. And I get it because sometimes if you're listing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 pieces of jewelry a day, it's hard to be really meticulous with each and every photo because at that point you're taking literally hundreds of photos a day. But once you get a system in place and once you learn how to use the settings on your camera, depending on what type of camera you're using, I know a lot of us use our phones, but it could also be, just getting better lighting. You would be surprised at how much that makes a difference. All right, make sure that you clean the lens on your phone because I know that sometimes can contribute to fuzzy or not the sharpest, best photos. And you want to have a obviously a neutral background, but you want to make sure that you have the jewelry piece that you're selling front and center in the photograph. All right. Sometimes people will have props in there, and I think, in some cases that'll work fine, especially if you have necklaces or earrings or something like that. You may be using like one of the neck stands or maybe the earring stands, something like that. And I think that's okay. But remember, we want to give the buyer the best possible information as it relates to our jewelry because they cannot see the piece in person and they obviously can't handle it and look at it from every angle and so forth. So, the importance of clear, well lit images that showcase the jewelry's details, we've talked about that. And I think the main school of thought is white backgrounds are best, although I have kind of tested different color backgrounds. Obviously, they're neutral. And I think it's just a matter of what works for you and what your preferences are. I don't know if you have to have a white background. I've used black, I have used gold, I have used even gray. And so, again, it just depends on what works for you and what type of jewelry that you are photographing. All right. You want to include multiple angles, close ups to the best of your ability. And like I said, natural lighting. I think if you can get that nailed down, you're going to be in really good shape. All right. So, that's the first thing that you want to think about or look at or examine as it relates to your listings is, are your photos the best that they can be? And if they're not, are you willing to maybe retake those photos? Again, I know that's a long, arduous process, but it could mean the difference between making and not making a sale. All right, so reason number two as to why your jewelry may not be selling, it could be your listings are just not strong enough or just not detailed enough. Now, again, if you are listing a lot of pieces of jewelry every day, it could be challenging to come up with detailed listings for 50 pieces of jewelry. But they don't have to be paragraphs or stories or anything too long and drawn out. I like to aim for at least a couple of sentences. If the piece is rare or more expensive, I try to give more information, as much as I know, because I do believe that when a buyer is spending hundreds of dollars on a jewelry piece, they want to be as informed as possible, and I want to make sure that I give them the information that they need. So, like I said, you don't have to write paragraphs and paragraphs, but you do want to give as much information as possible. Buyers need to know the materials, they need to know the brand or the designer. The era is nice if you happen to know that. If you don't, you can obviously just put vintage, modern, antique, whatever applies. The condition is also very crucial because people want to know if there's flaws or if there's some problems or some issues with the piece. And then you also want to make sure that you include measurements. Now, this, I see so many jewelry listings that don't have that, especially if it's like a ring or a necklace. or even a brooch. People want to know how big it is. People want to have an idea of, the specs as it relates to these jewelry pieces. Okay, so you want to include those things at the bare minimum. Okay, so that is the materials, gold, silver, whatever, the brand and the designer, if it is marked or signed. Sometimes you can include that even on an unsigned piece. The era, if you don't know the era of the jewelry, you can just limit it to vintage or modern, and the condition, and then of course measurements and sizing, if that applies. Okay, now the other thing too that I want to um, really make sure, to encourage you to do is to fill out as many item specifics on eBay. Now I know that that is a chore because there's probably hundreds of item specifics on eBay, but it really does help buyers find your particular jewelry pieces. All right. And depending on where you're selling, I know on Poshmark, they don't really have a whole lot of item specifics. Same with Whatnot, depending on where you're selling again. But the more information you can add into your listings, the higher likelihood that that jewelry piece will sell. All right, so reason number 3 as to why your jewelry is not selling, your pricing is off. Yeah, this is a tricky one. I know. I know. Trust me, I have made mistakes in pricing many times. And you live and you learn as you go, you do better, and hopefully you don't make the same mistakes. All right, so is your pricing too high? Because when your pricing is too high, people just think that you're not serious, or it scares buyers off, or people just, they don't even take your listing seriously. And then if your pricing is too low, sometimes people think, oh my gosh, what's wrong with this piece? Is it fake? um Not always, but sometimes. And so you want to make sure that you're pricing competitively, not what you want to get, but what the market is willing to dictate as it relates to the cost of that piece. All right. Now, of course, I would love to get at least $100 for every piece of jewelry that I sell, but that's not always the case. Sometimes, sometimes I can, but not all the time, right? So again, it's doing our research and figuring out what similar jewelry pieces are currently selling for in, at the time, whenever you're selling them. All right, so you want to research the sold comps, and we've talked about how to do that, at least on eBay. You're going to go in the left hand column and you're going to scroll down to where it says sold. I think it says sold items, and you're going to check that box, and then eBay will automatically filter your search results to include sold listings only. Okay, and then you can compare either the exact piece or similar jewelry pieces and find out what people are paying for that particular type of jewelry. So remember to price competitively. And, I hate to say price realistically, but maybe that's kind of the angle we need to take here. Um, Obviously get everything that, get as much as you can, but at the same time, we have to be realistic, and we have to, we can only ask for, what is that saying? It's like it's only worth what someone is willing to pay. And so we have to figure out what people are willing to pay for these jewelry pieces, or for our jewelry pieces. Okay, so think about that. All right, so number 4, as it relates to why your jewelry may not be selling, well, it could be your titles and your keywords are not SEO friendly. Now, this is not only important as it relates to your listings ranking on eBay, but it also is important as it relates to your listings ranking off of eBay on sites like Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever, whatever search engine people are using to find jewelry nowadays. All right, so buyers do search by specific keywords. Um, you want to avoid those embellished titles that say cute silver ring, or rare sparkly necklace. Like, you don't want to use those filler words because I'm going to say 99.9% of the time, buyers are not typing that in. You want to learn exactly how people are searching for particular jewelry pieces. All right. And I know this isn't easy. That's why I've created a resource for you. All right. The ultimate keywords and hashtags list for jewelry resellers. If you do need some help with this, I've got hundreds and hundreds of keywords and hashtags that you can use in your listings. And of course, they can all be tweaked to exactly what it is that you're selling. If there's something in there that's not exactly like yours, you can gently tweak those examples that I've given you in that ebook. Okay, so I will link that also in the show notes if you're interested. But so far, from those of you who have purchased it, I've gotten some really good feedback. So I hope it's helpful. And if it's not helpful, let me know so I can do and make some changes so it will be helpful for you. All right, so you want to make sure you have strong titles. This is an example. Vintage 925 sterling silver ring, size 7, Art Deco style. Okay, so that would be a strong title because those are the keywords that people are actually typing in when they are looking for sterling silver Art Deco types of rings. Okay, and you want to make sure that your listing comes up when a buyer is looking for that specific item. All right, so you also want to use SEO tools and research to find the right keywords. Like I said, I've created a resource for you to help you do that so you don't have to spend hours and hours on Google or on eBay trying to figure it out. But learning search engine optimization, like I said, it helps you in multiple ways. It's going to help you on the platform that you're selling on, and it's also going to help you off the platform. And it's also going to help you if you use social media to promote some of your jewelry pieces. All right. Because again, on social media, people search by keywords and hashtags as well. So think about that and make your listings searchable. Make your listings easy to find by the people that want to buy your gorgeous jewelry. All right, so next up, as it relates to why your jewelry may not be selling, we're on item number 5. And this one could be a little bit debatable, but it could be that you're selling on the wrong platform. Now, I get it. Most of us sell on eBay. A lot of us sell on Poshmark. Live sellers like me sell on Whatnot, District, Poshmark Live. All right, so you want to make sure that you find the right platform for you. And it's not always about what the platform does and does not do. You also have to take into account what makes sense for you as a jewelry reseller or as a jewelry seller or as a business owner, right? Because there's some people who they just sell on Whatnot because that makes sense for their business. Sure, maybe they could sell on eBay as well, but that doesn't work for their business. So there's a lot of things to think about as it relates to finding the best platform for you, for your business, and for your jewelry. Okay, so how do you figure this out? Well, a lot of it is going to depend on your inventory, and it's also going to depend on your business. All right, so if you are mostly selling higher end vintage pieces, I would say probably eBay, Etsy could be the best places for you. If you're doing really, really high end, maybe a platform like Ruby Lane or First Dibs. Now, if you are doing trendy costume jewelry, I would say eBay, Poshmark, maybe even Depop, maybe even Whatnot. Right? If you like to do the auction format as it relates to how you sell your jewelry, like I do, like I said, you can do Whatnot, you could do Poshmark Live, or you can do District.net. There's a lot of options, and you don't have to limit yourself to just one. You can experiment and see where you get the best results, where you make the most sales, what feels best for you. And this could be some trial and error. All right. I know pretty much as a baseline, everybody everybody is on eBay. But eBay is not the only show in town, like I've said many times on the podcast. And I know a lot of people have become disheartened with eBay. I've been seeing a lot of social media posts and YouTube videos of people saying that they're leaving eBay for a variety of reasons. And I understand that. I totally do. And so eBay may not be the best place for everyone. But if you're just getting started, I want to say eBay is probably the best learning platform as it relates to you learning about jewelry selling or jewelry reselling, because you will get the experience of learning how to create strong listings and also seeing what's working and what's not working, because a lot of these other platforms were initially modeled after eBay. Right. So if you can master eBay, you can probably master any of the other platforms as well. Okay, so we are on tip number 6. Why your jewelry is not selling? It could be a lack of promotion and engagement. All right. So here's the thing. I know a lot of us like to just kind of list it and forget it. And in some cases, that can work. If you have extraordinary pieces and if you just have everything dialed in, your pictures are on point, your listings are strong, what sells on what platform and to what buyer. You may be one of those jewelry resellers who totally can just list it and forget it and make continuous sales, right? I mean, that would be the dream for all of us. But if that isn't you, or maybe you get those results for maybe one or two pieces, not for everything you sell, you may want to look into promoting and having some type of engagement as it relates to your jewelry listings or your jewelry sales. So when I talk about promotions, I'm talking about paid and non-paid promotions. All right. I've done podcast episodes talking about this, and you may want to spend the money to promote your jewelry listings on the particular platform that you're selling on. All right. But again, that's going to have to be on a business by business basis. You're going to have to see if that makes sense financially for your business. But what I like to focus on is promoting like off the platform in the free ways. And I've talked about this before too. For me, that's through social media. I like to promote through social media on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, whatever the case may be. That is how I like to promote. Again, you're going to have to figure out what makes sense for your business, but people need to know what you're selling and they need to know what you have, and they want to see if you have something new, or maybe they want to reach out to you and say, hey, if you get any more of those pieces, let me know. I'd love to buy them. Right? So figure out how you are going to find the buyers, or at least inform your potential buyers of what you are selling and what you have and what type of jewelry seller you are. Now, again, the whole social media thing, because I hear this a lot of people don't want to do it, or they just feel like it's an overwhelming task, and I get that. Or they just may not have a big following. That's totally fine. You don't need to have a big following to post your jewelry listings or your jewelry photos, whatever the case may be, on social media, because you will grow if you're consistently posting. And even if you aren't interested in building a huge social media following, just having the presence online as it relates to people finding your jewelry, especially on Pinterest. I've been experimenting a lot with Pinterest, and I am going to do a podcast episode dedicated to Pinterest, but I'm still researching and I'm still gathering information, but I'm really, really loving it. All right. So if you're not on Pinterest, I highly encourage you to do so, because Pinterest is just a game changer. And I think it's something that a lot of people don't tap into, especially us jewelry people, because it's a visual platform. And if we want to show off our jewelry, that's an excellent place, an excellent place to do it. All right. But you also want to think about that. Okay. So think about posting on social media. It builds visibility for your brand and your jewelry and your business. It also creates trust, because the more people see you showing up, the more they feel like, oh, this is someone who's serious. This is someone who is reliable. And this is somebody who I want to be in touch with in case they have some jewelry that I'm looking for. All right. So now we are on tip number 7 as to why your jewelry may not be selling. And that is, your store lacks credibility, and people just may not know you, or they may not trust you, or both. All right. Now, I'm not saying you have to be super popular in order to make jewelry sales. I'm not saying that at all, because I know a lot of people who only sell on eBay. They don't have any type of brand or social media presence at all, and they do just fine selling on eBay. All right. You totally can. But if you really want to grow this, and if you really want this to be a sustainable business for you, it will not hurt you to build your um, foster a relationship. I guess that's the best way to say it, to foster a relationship with your customer base. And like I said, I like to do that through social media, but that's not the only way you can do it. You can do it with in-person events. You can do it with private shows, private events, whatever the case may be. And I think that there's a lot to be said for this, because this fuels the whole relationship building component of your business. And again, when you have people who just love you and they just love your jewelry, they become advocates for you, and they reach people in ways that you could not, even with paid ads. So think about building your credibility, fostering relationships, and communicating that this is something that you plan on doing for a very long time, and that you're not just in this to make a quick buck, because you truly have a passion and a love and appreciation for jewelry like I do, and you just want to share that passion with other people who who are just as passionate, right? So now there are some ways you can do this without having to do too much, right? You can create like I said, a social media presence. You can create a detailed about section, talking a little bit about yourself, maybe sharing what your policies are as it relates to your business, as it relates to jewelry. You also want to encourage maybe reviews, feedback, whatever, so people can see that you are legitimate and that you are not just trying to scam or do anything along those lines. And the other thing, which I think a lot of people don't realize how much this helps you, and that is consistently listing. If someone sees you listing every single day, in their mind, that builds a layer of trust, because it means that you take this seriously and that you are showing up every day, not only for your business, but also for your potential customers. All right. So listing consistently, posting consistently on social media, if you are doing that as a way to grow your business, and just showing up every single day, in whatever way. And I've talked about this before. You don't have to physically do this, do the posts and do the listings every day. You can schedule them out if that makes sense for you. All right. So you can figure out a way how you can show up every day for your business and for your customers. You can even hire somebody to do that for you. I've talked about this before. That was what I did back in my professional career days. I was a social media manager and I absolutely loved it. And, so there's ways that you can make this work. and you can figure out how it's going to make sense for you and how you can plan to show up consistently. Okay, so those are the 7 tips that I have for you as it relates to thinking about why your jewelry may not be selling, right? What can we do? What can we change? What can we improve upon to give ourselves, the best possible chances of making the sale? All right, so let me go back over my notes to make sure I did not miss anything. All right, so what are some actionable takeaways that we've talked about today? If you have some slow selling items, try taking some new photos. All right, that doesn't have to take long, and you don't have to do all of them in one day, but maybe you can do one or two stale listings, go back, see if you can tweak the photos. Maybe you can revamp the listings and have, better descriptions, adding in some keywords or some key phrases that could help that jewelry piece get found. You also want to re examine your pricing if you have, again, stale listings that have been there for months or years, even, and figure out, is there something you can tweak as it relates to your pricing to get those items moving? All right. And then, like I said, you want to post on social media, maybe just one post a day, maybe just one post every other day, or maybe Monday through Friday, whatever makes sense. And if you're taking the photos anyway for your listings, you already have that photo content that you can share on social media and say, hey, just listed this gorgeous pearl necklace. You can take a look at it in my eBay store or, wherever you're selling. Okay, so think about that, because I'm telling you, if you do these things, you will see that it will increase your sales. And the reason I know is because I've done it myself. I've gone back, looked at old listings, see what was wrong, see what I could change. And surprisingly, they do sell. And sometimes what happens, at least on eBay, when you improve one listing, it seems like it kind of wakes up other listings, and those old listings will make sales too. I've seen that happen where, you just kind of update stuff in your store and then suddenly you're making a bunch of sales. So I think it must trigger something in eBay's algorithm as it relates to you doing something in your store to make it better, right? And you get rewarded for that in some weird way. All right. So remember that small tweaks equal big sales improvements. And I like to say this too, like it's never wasted, right? The things you do to make your store better, to make your listings better, all of that time, effort, and energy is never wasted. Okay. So I understand it may be overwhelming if you have hundreds or thousands of listings, but you don't have to do it all in one day. And just start by the listing that's the oldest and see if there's something you can do to improve it. All right. So now I want to hear from you. What is your biggest challenge as it relates to selling jewelry or reselling jewelry? And what are some things that you have done to get your stale listings moving, to keep your listings fresh? All right. Now, I know jewelry is not really a fast seller unless you have something extremely rare or extremely trendy and in demand. For the most part, jewelry can take anywhere from 6 months to a year to sell, depending on what it is. And some of the more rare pieces could take even longer. So remember, you have to take all of that into consideration, right? Because not always is a listing that's been on eBay for a year necessarily bad or the photos bad. But if it's something really unique, something that could be really, really pricey, sometimes you do just have to wait for the right buyer. All right. So keep that in mind as well. All right, jewelry friends. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode and I hope it was helpful. Like I said, I'd love to get your feedback and your input as it relates to your biggest challenges when it comes to selling jewelry, because I like to do these episodes in response to some of the questions that you ask me. So if there is something you'd like me to talk about in an upcoming episode, I would love to do that for you. All right. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and I'll check in with you again really soon.